Finally, the first Marvel movie with a Bollywood dance number. And I'm not even kidding. Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage and Eternals is the 26th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was directed and co-written by Chloe Zhao, who just won 2 Oscars for Nomadland. Zhao has directed 4 feature-length films so far. I have yet to see her debut, Songs My Brothers Taught Me, but both The Rider and of course Nomadland are very sensitive, beautiful and kind of poetic films. And bringing her to the MCU paid off big time. And this movie very much follows the motto, go big or go home. Not so much in terms of action and spectacle, but when it comes to the scope of the story, the visuals, the sheer number of new superheroes, and also very importantly when it comes to representation and stuff we haven't quite seen like this in a Marvel film. It was actually Zhao herself who pitched the film to Nate Moore, who then produced it alongside MCU mastermind Kevin Feige. Zhao, apparently a fan of the comics and the MCU, pitched a very ambitious, several thousand-year-long spanning story, and what she finally brought to the screen deeply impressed and moved me. Eternals will come out in about 10 days, depending on where you live, and of course this will be a spoiler-free review. If you don't want to know anything at all, come back after you have seen the film. But it's also safe to stay, because I will give you only a vague idea about the story and carefully talk about the many things I loved about this film. First, let me say that I'm familiar with some Marvel comics, but I have or had no idea about the Eternals. They were originally created by Jack Kirby in the 1970s, and from my quick research I can at least say that the film adaptation took some core elements, but also changed around many others. So basically like always. I'm always very curious to see superheroes I know nothing about. Not only is it exciting, but I'm also curious how a film is able to make us understand and connect to these new characters. Or how does it even begin to make us remember all these many new names? It's a challenge to establish ensemble superhero movies from the start, but it can work. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 is still my favorite MCU film, another entry where I had almost no previous knowledge at all. The Eternals in this movie incarnation consists of no less than 10 superheroes, which is kind of crazy, as is the cast. Gemma Chan, Richard Madden, Selma Hayek, Angelina Jolie, Barry Keoghan, Kumail Nanjiani, Brian Tyree Henry, Ma Dong-seok, Lauren Ridloff and Leah McHugh. Trying to describe all the different heroes to you would be beyond what I can do in this review. That's really the job of the movie. And I think it does a fantastic job. It has a few moments that are certainly big exposition drops, but I honestly have a weak spot for exposition drops if they are realized in an artistic or epic way. Like the beginning of The Lord of the Rings, for example. And Eternals does so too, right at the beginning and then later on as well. And at this point Marvel has proven that the audience is ready for some big comic craziness, so it goes full in with the lore. Lore that puts the previous events in the MCU into yet another bigger cosmic context. Some aspects of this story about these humanoid superheroes that were created by a Celestial you just have to accept, and you probably shouldn't question certain decisions about the how and why, and if there wouldn't have been better options how to do certain things. It's big, ambitious sci-fi fantasy, and the film succeeded in fully investing me into it. Sometimes it's still crazy how we got from the very first Iron Man all the way to this. But another element that you also have to kind of accept, as usual, is the idea that no other superhero, be it Doctor Strange, Bruce Banner or whoever else, is around or take enough notice of all the really big things that are happening in the film's finale. And then there's the question why these superheroes never intervened with all the previous events that we have witnessed. But here the MCU is once again able to shine. They really have found great and clever ways of still further increasing their roster of heroes and placing new stories so that they didn't diminish stuff that came before, but instead even improve on it. After so many movies and so many years, there's this big emotional attachment and resonance, and the MCU is using that to their benefit. And in this particular case, it's not just happening in a world in which Thanos has previously snapped half of the universe out of existence, but also a world in which Earth heroes have come together to undo it and save the day. And that has a very big effect on the decisions of our new heroes, the Eternals. Even more, the question about interference and the cause of humanity are central aspects and themes of the film. And with that, as well as other elements, it also touches on something that resonates a lot with me. The idea of superheroes, their responsibilities, their burdens, and what they fight for. And also if humanity is worth it. The movie has such a big scope and its story unfolds on two timelines, present day and the past, in which we witness several important places and events in time. We are introduced to their original mission or purpose, see how they struggle with it and struggle with each other, which is all connected to the present day and the main story, if you will, which is unfolding like a classic bringing the band back together narrative. The Eternals are like this big family of longtime friends, and long time really means long time in this case. The movie gives you this great sense of time, and not just because it's the second longest film in the MCU with more than 2.5 hours of runtime, but it really does a wonderful job painting all these different relationships between the characters. Naturally, some of them are closer than others, and the cast and the chemistry are really amazing. Eternals is a movie full of big emotions and touching, heartfelt moments. The banter, friendship, and even love between these people is so engaging that it almost goes unnoticed that there's no real clear villain for the majority of the film. And even when the film's revealing all its cards later on, it's no easy good versus evil, and you might argue for both sides. And no, arguing that Thanos' plan was a good idea is still stupid. Eternals is a beautiful film, and not just because it looks gorgeous, though it really does. Chloe Zhao brought her sensitivity as a very visual filmmaker, and there's just something very organic, naturalistic and just real about the images. Zhao was able to shoot a lot on location, and there are these long 360-degree shots in the film that really immerse you in the action. This looks way less like a video game, something that many MCU movies suffer from. There's also a certain rawness and visceral feel to the action, even though the enemies are, of course, obviously CGI creatures. The movie also gives you these breathtaking shots that demonstrate the sheer size and scope of these beings and their story. The way they portray the Celestial and the tiny little Eternal standing or hovering in front of it. Watching this on an IMAX screen is really impressive. But the movie is also so beautiful because of these well fleshed out characters and their interactions and emotional bonds, as well as the themes and the beautiful representation it is able to pull off. It's a movie that certainly feels part of the MCU, and the connective tissue makes the story and themes even better, but it's also a movie that feels very differently, be it because of the direction, visuals, or just the things it addresses and shows. This might sound like a small thing, but it was just so refreshing to see an intimate sex scene in an MCU movie. Even if it was just a few seconds, but it further underlines the humanity and intensity of these relationships. There's so much going on between the characters, and almost all of it is either heartbreaking or full of joy and making me tear up because it's so beautiful. I mentioned at the beginning of the review that it does a terrific job in regards to representation. I'm all for it anyway, but in this case it so much deepens the idea of a united and diverse humankind and how it is worth to fight for it, so that these lives and love in its many forms can survive. It all felt so right and beautiful in context of this story and its deep felt emotions. Eternals features the very first deaf superhero in the MCU, portrayed by the deaf actress Lauren Ridloff. It also features the first gay superhero in the MCU, and that whole sequence, and you will know what I mean, brought me to tears. And again, this so much exemplifies for me what superheroes stand for. They fight for a better, more just and inclusive world, and Eternals is doing so much on that front, and yet it feels so natural and just right. There's really a lot to talk and praise about, but just two more things I want to touch on. First, the music, and second, the humor. I thought the score to this and the few song choices were fantastic. The music was composed by Ramin Djawadi, who is actually from Germany and who also did the score to the very first Iron Man. As far as the humor goes, this is probably what makes it the most recognizable as a MCU film. It's the quips and references, the stuff that somehow grounds it in everyday life, even if it's about these big cosmic things. The humor makes it more relatable, and the vast majority of it was really hilarious, especially all the stuff with Kumail Nanjiani and the Indian actor Harish Patel. They pretty much steal every scene. And yet the movie is still able to give you that big emotional punch, even if Harish Patel's character was used as pure comedic relief before. I really don't want to spoil any of it, but I couldn't believe what they did with Kumail Nanjiani's character. Now, Some jokes did fall a bit flat, and you could criticize that Marvel once again does diminish some of the more serious, more powerful moments with a joke that's coming a little bit too soon after it. Apart from the basic exposition, there are also some story progressions that I felt you just have to go with and not question it too much. Some of the things in the finale felt a bit rushed, and I'm not yet sure after just one viewing, but here and there the flow of the story could have maybe been a little bit smoother. There also could have been a better, stronger conclusion for the antagonistic beings, the so-called deviants. So it's certainly not a perfect film, and it's maybe a bit too expensive for its own good. But at the same time, Chloe Zhao's unique touch, the character work, this naturalistic and poetic, all of humankind spanning approach, the beautiful visuals, and more so the beautiful relationships and big emotions, all of that really got to me, and I was so touched by the film and full of joy that I'm very willing to look past its minor flaws. So in German I'd say, Eternals ist Liebe. Chloe Zhao ist ein wunderschöner Film gelungen. Ihre Superhelden sind solche beeindruckenden, übernatürlichen Wesen und gleichzeitig so menschlich. I give Eternals 9 out of 10. It's more like 8.5, but I don't do that. Alright, that's it like always. Comment below and let me know what you think about Eternals. Were you familiar with these heroes before, or are they completely new to you? And who did you enjoy the most? You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram and Letterboxd, and also on Patreon, simply at TheJimmyCage. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all I have to tell.